Hey guys, it's Nate, and what I wanted to show you today was my setup that I use for my Helix. I used to be a tube amp guy. About 6 to 8 years ago, I started transitioning over into the digital world, sold all my tube amps, and decided to go full Helix. Since 2018, I've only used the Helix for most of the playing that I do out. I've owned a few tube amps in between those times, but it's just something that I keep at home and mess around with. But currently I don't own any, and the only thing that I have is I have the Helix floor. I also use an HX Stomp sometimes in the barn if someone needs to use that for guitar tones or bass tones. And then my son also has a Helix floor as well. So we have a lot of Helix units to use whenever we're out here playing with friends or recording or whatever it may be. But even though I don't play in a band, the whole purpose of the patch that I'm using today is to kind of be a jack of all trades, something that you can use for a variety of things. And actually last year I played in my daughter's show choir band. She's in show choir at her school, and we were the backing band for the show, and I used this patch and we played everything from Styx, Kansas, up to Ozzy Osbourne, and this kind of fit the bill for everything. So let's take a look at what we're doing. What we're using is the Drip Edge Bassman model. So I'll go ahead and pull up the patch. It's actually pretty simple. The first thing that I have in it is the pitch effect. So on my clean tone here, there was a part in the choir show where we needed to go down a half step. So I was able to switch back and forth with that. Next we have a wah pedal, and I would use this for certain parts of the show. But then we come into my drive section. So in looking at the patch here, we've got my clean tone. Then we've got a gritty clean tone. And what we're using for that is we're adding the Minotaur Centaur emulator along with the bass amp tone here. And moving on to Snapshot 3, this is using the Noble's ODR model in the Helix along with the amp tone. So we go from clean, which is still kind of a gritty clean. We move it on using the Minotaur model. Then if we need more drive, we'll add the Noble's ODR instead of the Minotaur. And then I have a snapshot number 4 is called ODR Drive Plus, and that combines the Minotaur with the prize drive together. Now moving on, that's my basic 4 sets of patches. So from a gritty clean to a little bit more dirty, and then what I would call distortion, and then heavy distortion. I did add one more drive section with delay and reverb, and that's my lead patch here. So that pretty much covered the basis for what we would do in show choir. Now, I also had a clean patch that is kind of like an ambient chorus patch. I also had a chorus clean. And that doesn't have the reverb or the delay that the ambient chorus did. And then the final thing I used for one of the ballads that we used in show choir, and this also translates to maybe blues playing, is a Univibe model in the Helix. So it doesn't see a lot of use, but sometimes if you're playing certain blues songs, it's nice to have that in there. But the thing that maybe stands out in this patch that makes it really versatile for me is being able to shift the pitch of the guitar depending on what type of song that we play. A lot of modern country songs tend to go a half step or a whole step down these days, and rather than have to retune the guitar, usually the pitch shifting in the Helix does a pretty decent job, at least in a band mix. So one of the songs that I tend to play a lot out here, either with backing tracks or with friends, is Blacktop White Lines by Chris Shiflett. And that song is tuned drop D and then down a half step. So using the simple pitch in the Helix allows me to quickly change without having to grab a different guitar or retune or anything like that. So in standard tuning, just with the hit of a button, it tends to track pretty well. Sometimes if you're doing complex chords or something like that, it may not be able to keep up, but for just single note riffing, it does pretty good. You can kind of hear it grabbing and letting go and grabbing again with the pitch on a chord like this. And then if you want to take it even lower than that, sometimes you need to go a whole step down. You can kind of hear it grab when you grab those big chords. So I use this patch with my Telecaster, but also with my Strat. The Strat tends to be a little brighter, but it's got a little bit more aggressive mids, and the patch still favors the guitar well. I don't have to do any adjustments or anything like that. So let's check it out with the Strat. All right, starting with the clean with the Stratocaster. And then finally, snapshot 4. and then lead. And then if I need to go down a half step with the Strat. This is actually a whole step down at the moment. And then in pedal mode, I can take this and add more drives to it. I've got a Scream 808 model on it here. Just kind of takes it over the top. And then with the pitch shifting. So this is my Jack of all trades patch that I use really for the most part with all the guitars that I have currently. Sometimes if I'm doing something like a worship type set, I will probably tend to gravitate towards a Vox tone. But for country and rock, the drip edge bassman model in the Helix is probably one of my favorite Fender amps, if not my most favorite. And just in case you have the most recent firmware on your Helix, but you're not able to find the drip edge bassman, it's located in the model list with the bass amps. It is not with guitar. One of the things I didn't mention with my patch, because it seems to be easily overlooked, at least by me, are the cabs. Now, I have a go-to combination of cabs within the Helix, and that is always a greenback 25 4x12 and a blackback 30 4x12. I use the 906 dynamic on the blackback 30, and I use a 57 on the greenback 25. But I tend to go with those two speaker combos pretty much with any amp that I'm using for country or rock. About the only time I deviate from that is if I'm doing a Vox type setup. But thanks for checking out the patch with me today. If you would, leave a comment. Let me know what your go-to setup is in your modeling unit.